What if the quietest member of the family is actually the one holding the biggest secret? For years, we've watched the Brown family dynamics play out on our screens, focusing on the marriages, the fights, and the constant upheaval. But we've been missing the silent story, the one brewing just beneath the surface in Robyn's seemingly perfect branch of the family. What if the escape of her eldest son, Dayton, from the chaos of their home exposes a cruel and manipulative dynamic where one child is callously sacrificed for the sake of another? We have exclusive insights into the shocking reason behind Dayton's sudden departure from the family home and the devastating accusation Kody and Robyn have leveled against his own sister, Aurora. This isn't just a family drama. It's a story of manipulation and heartbreak that could shatter everything you thought you knew about the Browns. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story. You're not going to want to miss a single detail of this. If you want to stay ahead of all the sister wives drama and get the real stories that the show is too afraid to tell you, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell. Your support helps us dig deeper and bring you the truth. For seasons, we've watched the Brown family implode. We've seen the marriages crumble, the alliances shift, and the once united family shatter into a million bitter pieces. But the real story, the one that's been happening in the shadows, might be the silent implosion within Robyn's perfect family. Today, we're diving deep into a story you haven't heard, a story of a young man's desperate escape and a sister's unimaginable heartbreak. This is the story of Dayton's disappearance and the shocking blame game that has torn a sibling bond apart, possibly forever. To truly understand the magnitude of Dayton's departure, we have to go back. We have to look at the boy we've watched grow up on our screens, the one who was always just a little bit different from the rest of the boisterous Brown clan. Dayton has always been the enigma of the Brown children. While the others often vied for camera time, jostling for position in the family hierarchy, he frequently receded into the background, an observer rather than a participant. Remember when the family was in the throes of one of their many moves, this time to Flagstaff? While the rest of the family was caught up in the drama of plots of land and housing arrangements, Dayton's primary concern seemed to be his RV. At the time, we all saw it as a quirky choice, perhaps a young man's desire for a little bit of independence. It was framed as this charming, slightly eccentric preference. But was it? Or was it something much deeper? Was it actually a desperate plea for peace, a tangible barrier he could erect between himself and the relentless storm of his family's emotions? He wasn't just choosing a vehicle, he was choosing a sanctuary, a space he could control in a life that was constantly being dictated by the whims and dramas of his parents. Let's analyze the moments you might have missed, the subtle, but telling signs of a young man drowning in the constant drama that is his family. Think back to the countless family meetings, the endless discussions about the family's future, the tearful confrontations. Where was Dayton in these scenes? More often than not, he was physically present but emotionally absent. His posture, his gaze, his silence, it all screamed of a person who had learned to disassociate as a coping mechanism. Look at his eyes in these moments. There's a distance there, a wall that he's clearly built to protect himself. While his siblings might engage, argue, or get swept up in the emotion of the moment, Dayton often appears to be in his own world. This wasn't teenage angst or shyness. This was a survival tactic. He was a quiet soul born into a world of constant noise, a sensitive spirit in a family that thrives on conflict. We also have to consider the immense pressure that came with his adoption. When Kody legally adopted Robyn's 3 children from her first marriage, it was portrayed as this beautiful, unifying moment for the family. And in many ways, it was. But for a child, especially one on the autism spectrum, this kind of change is monumental. It wasn't just a new last name. It was a completely new identity, a new set of expectations, and a new, very public role in this sprawling, complicated family. On top of that, let's not forget the move to Flagstaff was, in large part, justified by the need for Dayton to attend a specific college. The entire family, all 18 of them at the time, uprooted their lives for this one opportunity for him. Now, on the surface, that sounds like an incredibly supportive and loving act. But imagine the immense, unspoken pressure that places on a young man's shoulders. The weight of knowing that the stability and happiness of your entire family rests, in some way, on your academic career. That's not just support, that's a burden. Every decision he made, every grade he got, was likely scrutinized under the microscope of, was this move worth it? And through it all, who was his closest confidant? His sister, Aurora. They, along with their younger sister, Brianna, were a unit. They had navigated the divorce of their biological parents, the introduction into the Brown family, and the glare of the reality TV cameras together. They were each other's constants in a life of perpetual change. This bond is crucial to understanding the devastation that was to come. This retrospective look at Dayton's behavior isn't just about pointing out his quiet nature. It's about reframing everything we've seen. It's about understanding that what we were watching wasn't just a boy growing up, it was a boy slowly and steadily reaching his breaking point. The quiet moments, the preference for solitude, the emotional distance, these were not just personality traits. They were the prelude to his eventual escape. He was silently screaming for help, and it seems no one was truly listening. The stage was being set for a departure that would be as quiet as his on screen presence, but the fallout would be anything but. So, if Dayton was so clearly struggling, where is he now? If you're watching the current season of Sister Wives, you might notice he's conspicuously absent. The show, with its carefully crafted narratives and glaring omissions, won't tell you this. But we've heard from sources close to the family that Dayton has finally broken free. And the story is far more shocking than you can imagine. According to our sources, Dayton has reportedly moved out of Kody and Robyn's multi-million-dollar house. He's not just off at college and living in a dorm. We're told he has secured a small, private apartment of his own and has drastically limited, if not almost completely cut off, contact with Kody and Robyn. This isn't a young man leaving the nest. This is a young man fleeing it. The reason? Our sources claim he simply could no longer handle the emotional roller coaster of his own home. Think about what we've seen on the show, the constant tension, the bitter resentments from the other branches of the family, and Kody's increasingly volatile behavior. Now, imagine living in that environment 24/7 without the cameras there to act as a buffer. Imagine being a quiet, sensitive individual in a home where the emotional volume is always turned up to 11. Our insider reports suggest that the atmosphere inside Kody and Robyn's home became unbearable for Dayton. The constant negativity surrounding the family's disintegration, Kody's rants about his other wives and children, and the suffocating sense of being at the center of the family's last stand, it was all too much. Dayton, a person who craves peace and order, was living in the eye of a hurricane. His escape was an act of self-preservation. But the truly shocking part of this story isn't that he left. Many young adults leave home to find their own way. The shocking part is who his parents are blaming for his departure. You would think that any loving parent, upon realizing their son felt the need to flee their home, would engage in some serious self-reflection. They might ask themselves, what did we do wrong? How did we contribute to this? How can we fix it? But that is reportedly not what happened in the Brown gas household. Instead of looking in the mirror, Kody and Robyn allegedly turned their sights on a new target, a new villain in their ever-evolving family drama. And the person they chose to blame is the last person anyone would expect, Dayton's own sister, Aurora. This is where the story takes a dark and deeply disturbing turn. What I'm about to tell you is based on reports from sources who have witnessed the inner workings of this family and are deeply concerned about the dynamics at play. This is the conversation that happened behind closed doors, away from the prying eyes of the TLC cameras. Our sources allege that in a heated and emotional family discussion, after Dayton had moved out and the reality of his absence began to set in, Kody, with Robyn's silent approval and support, confronted a devastated Aurora. They didn't approach her with concern for their family's fracturing. They approached her with an accusation. We have a reported quote from this confrontation that will send chills down your spine. Kody allegedly told Aurora, "Dayton needs peace, and Aurora, you bring chaos." Let that sink in. You bring chaos. Imagine hearing those words from your own father, a father who is supposed to be your protector, your advocate. We're told that Kody and Robyn went on to tell Aurora that her extra emotional drama and her attitude are what drove her brother away. They allegedly painted a picture where Dayton, their sensitive son, was a victim and Aurora, his sister, was his tormentor. Our sources describe a scene of utter devastation. Aurora was reportedly completely shattered, left to believe that her own brother, the one she grew up with, the one who was her closest ally in this chaotic family, is now running away from her. Think of the psychological damage of that accusation. It's not just a criticism, it's a fundamental rejection. It's a parent telling their child that their very presence, their personality, their emotions are toxic to their siblings. Let's be very clear about the context here. Aurora, like all the Brown children, has grown up in an incredibly stressful and unstable environment. We've seen her have panic attacks on the show. She is a young woman dealing with her own anxieties and pressures, all while living under the microscope of reality television. To then be told that her emotional struggles are not only a burden, but are the direct cause of her brother abandoning the family is a level of cruelty that is hard to comprehend. This is where the narrative of Robyn's perfect family begins to unravel completely. For years, Robyn has presented her children as a tight-knit, loving unit, a stark contrast to the drama and dysfunction she saw in the other parts of the family. She was the mother who healed, who brought her children into this larger family and created a safe harbor. But what our sources are describing is not a safe harbor. It's a deeply dysfunctional environment where scapegoating is the preferred method of dealing with problems. So, what could possibly be the motivation behind Kody and Robyn's alleged actions? Why would they inflict this kind of emotional wound on their own daughter? Our analysis points to a few deeply troubling possibilities. First, and most obviously, it's about deflecting blame. If Aurora is the problem, then Kody and Robyn don't have to examine their own roles in creating a home environment that was so toxic that their son felt he had to flee. They don't have to confront Kody's anger issues, his neglect of his other children, or the isolating bubble they've created around their own family unit. It's a classic narcissist tactic. Find a scapegoat to carry the burden of your own failings. Aurora, being emotionally vulnerable and desperate for her parents' approval, was the perfect target. Second, it's about control. By isolating Aurora and making her believe she is the source of the family's problems, they can exert more control over her. It creates a dynamic where she is constantly seeking their forgiveness and approval, trying to fix herself to please them. It's a way of ensuring her loyalty and keeping her tethered to them, even as her brother breaks free. And third, and perhaps the most disturbing, is the possibility that they are sacrificing one child to coddle another. In their eyes, Dayton is the special, sensitive one who needs to be protected at all costs. His needs, his comfort, his peace are paramount. And if protecting Dayton means throwing Aurora under the bus, then so be it. It's a chilling example of parental favoritism taken to a toxic and destructive extreme. The accusation against Aurora isn't just a moment of poor parenting. If our sources are correct, it's a calculated act of psychological manipulation. It's an attempt to rewrite the story of Dayton's departure into one where they, Kody and Robyn, are the righteous protectors of a vulnerable son, and Aurora is the villain who disrupted their perfect family. But the truth is, their family was never perfect. And this act of betrayal against their own daughter may be the crack that shatters the facade for good. The image of the united, loving family that Robyn fought so hard to create is now being exposed as a carefully constructed lie, built on a foundation of secrets, favoritism, and now, the heart-wrenching sacrifice of a daughter's well-being. This isn't just a family falling apart, it's a family actively cannibalizing itself to maintain an illusion. The alleged scapegoating of Aurora is more than just a single, horrific act of parenting. It is the seismic event that exposes the foundational cracks in the facade Robyn has meticulously constructed for over a decade. This brings us to the most disturbing question of all. Is Robyn mentally sacrificing one child to coddle another in a desperate attempt to maintain control? For years, Robyn has curated this image of a loving, cohesive family unit, a safe harbor from the rest of the Brown clan's dysfunction. Her narrative has always been consistent. She and her children were the outsiders who came in and desperately wanted to be part of the larger family, only to be met with jealousy and resistance. She was the peacemaker, the one who understood Kody, the one who could provide him with the loyalty and respect he so craved. Her family, by extension, was the model of what the Brown family should have been. Remember all the tears? The countless confessionals where Robyn lamented the family's struggles and positioned herself as the empathetic observer, the one who just wanted everyone to get along. She sold us the story of a woman who valued the family above all else. But this latest development doesn't just crack that facade, it shatters it into a million pieces. Let's analyze the pattern. Robyn's entry into the family was the catalyst for a fundamental shift in the family's power dynamics. Kody's attention, resources, and time began to pivot dramatically towards her and her children. When other members of the family, particularly Christine, expressed their pain and frustration over this imbalance, they were often painted as bitter, jealous, or unable to live polygamy correctly. The problem was never the behavior of Kody and Robyn. The problem was always someone else's reaction to it. Sound familiar? It's the exact same playbook they are now allegedly using on their own daughter. When faced with a problem, Dayton's departure, that implicitly indicates their home environment, their solution is an introspection. It's to find a villain. In the past, the villains were Christine, Janelle, or their outspoken children. Now, with the external enemies gone, the toxic dynamic has turned inward, and the villain has to be found within their own four walls. Aurora, with her documented emotional vulnerability, became the easiest target. Is this a desperate attempt to control the narrative? Absolutely. By blaming Aurora, Kody and Robyn can avoid their own culpability. They don't have to face the uncomfortable truth that their safe harbor might actually be a high-pressure, emotionally volatile environment. They don't have to acknowledge that Kody's well-documented rage and narcissistic tendencies might have created a home so unbearable that their quiet, sensitive son had to flee for his own mental health. It's far easier to label a teenage girl as chaotic than to admit that the king and queen of the castle have failed. And what is Robyn's role in this? Our sources paint a picture of not just silent approval, but active participation in this narrative. For years, we've seen Robyn wield her emotions as both a sword and a shield. Her tears have often been used to steer conversations, garner sympathy, and position herself as the victim. Is it possible she is now teaching her children the same manipulative dynamic? By validating Kody's accusation against Aurora, she is reinforcing a toxic lesson. In this family, to survive, you must have a scapegoat. You must find someone else to carry the blame for your unhappiness. This alleged incident forces us to re-examine everything we thought we knew about Robyn. Is she the loving mother who would do anything for her children? Or is she a master manipulator, so deeply enmeshed with a narcissist that she is now willing to sacrifice one child's emotional well-being to placate her husband and protect her own fragile reality? The latter is a terrifying thought, but it aligns with a pattern of behavior we have seen for years. She has consistently enabled Kody's worst impulses, defended his most egregious behavior, and isolated him from anyone who dared to challenge him. Why would her own children be exempt from this dynamic? The perfect family was always an illusion, a story Robyn told herself and the world. But it was a powerful one. It was the justification for appending the entire Brown family structure. It was the prize she won for her loyalty to Kody. Now, that prize is tarnishing. Dayton's empty room is a silent testament to the failure of that illusion. And the alleged emotional crucifixion of Aurora is the desperate, ugly attempt to glue the pieces of that shattered narrative back together. They are trying to find a simple villain for a complex problem, but in doing so, they have revealed themselves to be the very architects of their family's pain. The alleged betrayal of Aurora is not an isolated event that exists only within the walls of Kody and Robyn's mansion. It sends shockwaves through the entire, fractured Brown family ecosystem. It serves as the ultimate validation for the family members who have already escaped, and it hardens the battle lines that have been drawn in the sand for years. Think about the other Brown children. Think about Gwendolyn, who has been incredibly outspoken on her own YouTube channel about her father's behavior and her complicated relationship with Robyn. Think about Paydon, who has publicly stated he can never be a father like Kody. Think about Michael T, who has navigated her own delicate peace with her father. How do you think they would react to hearing that their sister Aurora is being blamed for Dayton's departure? They wouldn't be surprised. They would be horrified, heartbroken for Aurora, but ultimately not surprised, because this is the pattern they have lived with their entire lives. This is the Kody and Robyn they know. It aligns perfectly with their own experiences of conditional love, of having to toe the line or risk being emotionally exiled. For years, Christine and Janelle's children watched as Kody's attention and affection were funneled towards Robyn's kids. They were the other children, the ones who had to make appointments to see their own father. This incident with Aurora is simply the most extreme and cruel manifestation of a dynamic that has been festering for over a decade. Kody and Robyn demand absolute, unquestioning loyalty. Anyone who deviates, anyone who has extra emotional drama, anyone who challenges their authority or narrative becomes a problem to be managed or eliminated. We saw it happen with Christine. When she finally had enough and chose her own happiness, she was vilified. We saw it with Janelle, who was cast aside for not showing enough deference to Kody's authority. And we've seen it most painfully with his sons, Gabe and Garrison. Kody's justification for his broken relationship with his sons was that they didn't respect him or his rules. He blamed them, just as he is now allegedly blaming Aurora. He couldn't or wouldn't see his own role in the conflict. He couldn't see that his demands for obedience had pushed his children away. The common denominator in all of these fractured relationships is Kody's inability to handle any perceived slight and Robyn's unwavering support of his position. Now, that same destructive force has been unleashed within their own tender-aged family unit. The very children Robyn fought so hard to protect from the dysfunction of the larger family are now the primary victims of a new, more concentrated form of that same dysfunction. Our sources suggest that news of this situation has already begun to trickle out to some of the other Brown siblings. The reaction has reportedly been one of disgust and sorrow for Aurora. One source told us, "It just proves we were right all along. It was never about family. It was about control. We feel terrible for Aurora, but this is why we keep our distance. This solidifies the divide." For any of the older children who may have held out a sliver of hope for reconciliation with their father, this story would likely be the final nail in the coffin. How could you ever trust a father who you believe is capable of emotionally sacrificing one of his children to protect his own ego? How could you ever rebuild a relationship with a man who sees his own daughter's emotional struggles as a weapon used against him? The ripple effect is profound. It validates Christine's decision to leave 100 times over. It vindicates Janelle for choosing her children over her husband. It provides a tragic, but clear, explanation for why so many of the older Brown children want nothing to do with their father. The story of Dayton and Aurora is not just about Robyn's family. It's the final, damning piece of evidence in the case against Kody and Robyn's version of family. It proves that the problem wasn't polygamy, the problem wasn't the other wives, and the problem wasn't the other children. The problem was, and always has been, the toxic, narcissistic, and controlling dynamic that Kody and Robyn have cultivated around themselves. And now, tragically, their own children are paying the highest price for it. So where does this leave us? We've journeyed deep into the shadows of the Brown family, far beyond the curated scenes and carefully edited confessionals of the television show. We've uncovered a narrative of quiet desperation, of a young man's flight to freedom, and of a sister's devastating betrayal at the hands of her own parents. Let's recap the shocking revelations we've discussed today. Dayton, Robyn's eldest son, has reportedly fled the family home, seeking refuge from what sources describe as an emotionally unbearable environment. But instead of engaging in self-reflection, his parents, Kody and Robyn, have allegedly placed the blame for his departure squarely on the shoulders of his sister, Aurora, accusing her of bringing chaos and emotional drama that drove her brother away. This accusation has not only shattered a sibling bond, but has also completely demolished the carefully constructed facade of Robyn's perfect family. It exposes a disturbing pattern of behavior, one of scapegoating, manipulation, and a desperate need for control that has now turned inward, cannibalizing the very family unit it was meant to protect. This isn't just a family feud, it's a psychological drama with devastating real world consequences for the children caught in the middle. The Brown family saga has taken a dark and twisted turn, one that a reality show would never dare to air in its raw truth. This goes beyond petty squabbles over property lines or whose turn it is to have the husband over for the night. This is about the fundamental duties of a parent to love, to protect, and to nurture. And the question we are left with is a haunting one. Have Kody and Robyn committed the ultimate betrayal against their daughter? Now, we want to hear from you. This is a story with so many layers, so many questions, and so much heartbreak. What do you think? Are Kody and Robyn justified in any way, or are their actions unforgivable? Is Aurora the ultimate victim in this sad chapter of the Brown family's history? Are you surprised by these allegations, or does this confirm what you've suspected all along? Head down to the comments section and let us know your thoughts. Let's have a real conversation about this. The dynamics at play here are complex, and your insights are a crucial part of this community. And if you want to stay ahead of the latest sister wives drama and get the stories the show won't tell you, the stories that get to the heart of what's really going on behind the scenes, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We are following every twist and turn of this developing story, and believe me, you will not want to miss what we uncover next. Thank you for reading.